All right, perfect. Well, good morning. Appreciate you stopping in to visit us today. My name is Chad Plontz. I'm with Edward Jones. I have an office right around the corner from here, actually on West Wooster, so 519 West Wooster. So I appreciate everybody joining us here today. Appreciate Danielle Brogley for partnering with us. We've done this for a number of months now, where we partner with the Senior Center to bring just financial topics and education to the community. So appreciate you guys joining us here today. Today's topic is Social Security, some questions and answers around Social Security, some of the changes, what the current program looks like. So we'll dive into this today, and there will be question and answer at the end here if questions do come up about anything specific. So, oftentimes when we have conversations with our clients about Social Security and just the, retirement in general, it's always a question of, well, am I going to outlive my money, right, as a concern. And Social Security is one of those avenues that's going to, provide you a guaranteed source of income for life, right? So with that being said, when we look at Social Security, it was designed to provide a piece of your retirement picture. Wasn't really ever designed to be your full retirement. It was more designed to, keep people out of poverty. It was a step to, when you're in retirement, to stay out of poverty. So, so the question behind, well, am I going to outlive my money, right? That's what we often get is, well, what's the biggest mistake people make when it comes to Social Security? Since that is a portion of your guaranteed income for life, and that's making an emotional decision about Social Security as opposed to a good financial decision when it comes to Social Security and your options with Social Security. So, is everybody able to see this on the screen? Okay. And here's the handout if it makes it easier for you. This is going to kind of follow along with the stuff that's on the screen here today. All right, how you doing? You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. That'll follow along with what's happening on the screen as well, okay?
I'm like, what's going on?
Sure. All right, so once again, for those just joining us, we're talking about Social Security today, just what the current Social Security looks like. We'll get a little bit of history on Social Security. So just to kind of dive into what Social Security is, right? Technically, 96% of Americans are entitled to some sort of Social Security benefit as of today. So that's a lot of people that are, have the ability to take advantage of what Social Security has to offer, right? Now, if we look at what is the average monthly Social Security payment as of 2021, that is $1,534. Which is roughly the equivalent of $19,000 per year. So, as I had mentioned a few minutes ago, was the fact that, well, Social Security was not designed to provide a full retirement to you. It was more or less set up as a piece of your retirement picture, and it was really set up to try and give that step to keep retirees out of poverty, right? Was the idea. So $19,000 per year. Now, if we look at Social Security and say, okay, let's say somebody is a high income earner their entire life, right? What's the max payment for somebody that paid in the max amount into Social Security over a 35-year period? Well, that monthly payment is $3,154. Okay, so that's the max payment. Now, let's assume that high income earner that's receiving that had a spouse that was a stay-at-home spouse. Right. Well, that stay-at-home spouse hadn't paid into Social Security, but technically they're entitled, as long as they've been married for 10 years or more, to the ability to start Social Security as well at full retirement age and receive half of the working spouse's Social Security. So that working spouse still receives their $31.54 each month, but then the spouse, that was the stay-at-home spouse, would also receive another $1,500 monthly in Social Security benefit on top of that. So right there, that's a $56,000 annual income for that couple, even though it was just one working spouse, right? So with that being said, $56,000 a year, right? That's, if we take a look at, well, what's an equivalent? Well, if you think about $1 million of investable assets, if you tried to go out and get an annuity or something along those lines that was paying 5.6% rate of or yield on it each year, well, that's the equivalent of $56,000 of annual income. So it could take $1 million to achieve what that Social Security payment's providing, right? So, so Social Security, very important, making not an emotional decision when it comes to Social Security, but making more of a good financial decision. So Social Security's been around for a while, 86 years. 1935 is when Social Security was first put into place. The first payment wasn't issued until 1937. So Social Security looks a little different today than it did back in 1937, right? So in 1937, Social Security was designed to only cover the worker. There were no spousal benefits, no child or dependent benefits, no disability benefits. So it was the worker, and you could only start Social Security at 65. Life expectancy back in 1937 was 63 years of age. So that tells you a little bit, right, about, first of all, there were many people that never even received a Social Security payment. And there's a lot of people that if they did, maybe they only received it for a couple of years, right, because of life expectancy. So with that being said, things have changed a little bit since that time, right? So since that time, now today you have the ability to turn it on early, right? You can turn on Social Security at the age of 62 if you wanted to. They have also what they call full retirement age. Full retirement age pertains to a year you were born. And then it says, okay, based on the year you were born, this is the age in which you'll receive 100% of your Social Security benefit. It doesn't have anything to do with your actual retiring age. It's just what they use as what they call full retirement age. So, so as of right now, you may hear people say, well, who knows how long Social Security is going to be around, right? We do hear that a lot. Oh, you know, I got time until retirement. I don't know how long this is going to be around for. So if that's the case, right, as of today, the way Social Security currently sits, full retirement benefit can be, it's on pace right now that they will reduce full retirement benefits. They'll only be able to pay out 78% of full retirement benefits come the year 2034. So this isn't the first time this has been that scenario. Welcome. Feel free to say anything you'd like if you want. Okay. So with that full retirement age, right? So once again, back to the current Social Security situation, right? 2034. Well, there's been two other times in history since, over the 86 years of Social Security, there've been two other times where Congress has had to step in to take action to make Social Security fully funded, right? So in 2021, currently, Congress doesn't do anything overly quickly. So the idea that they're going to be worried about something that is really not an issue in their eyes until 2034, we probably won't see any major changes right away. You got it. So for this past year, Social Security did adjust for inflation. This was just a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if anybody had seen that, but Social Security or Social Security payments will have gone up 5.9% starting next year. I'm sorry, what's that? Yeah, I don't believe that that's the case. Now, if you don't notice that adjustment come January, I would reach out to them to make sure you're getting it. But I believe it's January 1st or your January payment. Yep, absolutely. So, okay. Okay. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, yeah, it'll be around the first of the year is my understanding. So, So that's just kind of a rundown where we are at with Social Security, where it's been, right, over the years. Now, what you're seeing here on the screen is just, a foundation of income sources for somebody that might be 65 or older, right? So there's basically four main areas that we talk about for somebody that's 65 or older. Social Security is an option, right? As you can see on the screen. Earnings is your other option. That's your, if you're still working at the age of 65 or older, right? That's your earned income. Pensions is a percentage there, and then your retirement asset class, which is the percentage up at the top. So pensions, it's the smaller option, right? It's the smallest of those. As you can see, Social Security is the largest bulk for most people's retirement funding, right? Now, earnings for those people still working, but pensions are kind of, it seems like they're going away, right? You see less and less pensions. There are government pensions with the university here in town, and there's lots of government jobs out there. Government pensions do have an effect on Social Security. So if you are paying into a government pension, even if you had years of service in paying into Social Security, when you go to turn on Social Security, if you're receiving the government pension, they reduce your Social Security payment. So even if you're seeing a statement that says, hey, this is what their Social Security is saying my monthly payment's going to be at a certain age, they don't take into consideration that you're going to be getting a government pension. And if you do get a government pension, it will be reduced. It's not what they're saying at Social Security. So you have to talk with somebody at Social Security to get the actual contribution. I can dive into additional information on that, or if there's anybody that has specific questions, I can meet up with you guys on that. So once again, if Social Security is such a large portion of retirement income or income for those 65 and older, we want to make sure we're making a good financial decision about when to turn that on, as opposed to reacting emotionally about it. So today's topic, right, of Social Security, we're going to discuss some of the benefits that Social Security provides. When should you start taking Social Security, and then taxes. What about the taxes that happen on Social Security? And once again, you can follow along in your guide there. So when we talk about the benefits of Social Security, right, it's a lifetime benefit. The idea is that you're not going to outlive this Social Security payment. So it's going to be there for your life. It has the ability for adjusted for inflation, right? So once again, we just saw that 5.9% increase this year. So it has the ability to increase with inflation. And then the spousal benefit. So that spousal benefit, there's different types of spousal benefits. We'll dive into that as well. Okay. So estimating your benefits, right? I often get the question, well, what am I going to get from Social Security, right? Well, the answer to that is it depends. And there's a couple different factors that'll determine what you're ultimately going to get from Social Security. The first thing being time, right? You have to have in 40 quarters of paying into Social Security, which is the equivalent of about 10 years of work, right? Your earnings. Your earnings are going to be the other variable. The earnings, ultimately, they take your top 35 years of income earnings, and that's how they're going to calculate. They're going to use that to calculate. So if you work for 40, 50 years, they're just taking your top 35 years, right? So they're going to use that to calculate it. And then probably the biggest variable is the start date, right? When are we going to actually decide to turn on Social Security? And once you turn on Social Security, unfortunately, there's not really a way to go back on it. So this is where we want to make a good a financial decision opposed to emotional. So when should I start taking Social Security, right? Well, this is where you really need to understand what's your current situation, what your situation is, right? Everybody's different. I hear people say all the time, oh, you just need to turn it on as early as possible. That is not the case, right? Or you need to wait until as late as, wait until you're 70, right? Wait until you're 70, because that's when you're gonna get the most amount of money. That's not necessarily always the best scenario, right? So at Edward Jones, we have a proven process that we can sit down with clients and say, okay, this is what your current situation looks like. These are your goals for what you want to spend in retirement and what other goals you may have in addition to that. So let's sit down and understand that first, and then determine what's the pros and cons of turning on Social Security, spousal benefits, those types of things at different ages. And we'll dive into that a little bit here as well. So full retirement age. I touched on this briefly already, but the idea is full retirement age does not mean the age in which you retire from your employer. Full retirement age is what Social Security uses is basically a term to say, when are you going to receive 100% of your Social Security benefit? So, and as you see on this slide here, for those that were born between 1943 and 1954, your full retirement age is when you turn age 66. If you were born after that, you can see they push it out. You know, the further out your date of birth is, right? So 1955, that was 66 years in 1 month. Age of 50, or if you were born in 1956, right? 66 years and 3 months. So you can see anybody born on 1960 or after that, you don't get your full retirement benefit until the age of 67. I mentioned in the past, right? What did Social Security used to look like? Well, back in 1937, there wasn't full retirement age versus, can you take it early? Can you take it later? It was at the age of 65, right? It was set. So once again, Social Security can change, right? So when we talk about is it going to be there 30 years from now? Chances are pretty good it's going to be there. It'll look different than it does today, just like it looks now different than it did 30 years ago. So taking it early versus delaying, what's the true benefit cost, right? So this is assuming that somebody's going to receive Social Security full benefit at the age of 66. So if you took it at 66, you're getting 100% of your Social Security benefit. But if that's your full benefit, if you said, hey, I'm just going to turn it on at 62, that's my earliest option, you are only getting 75% of your Social Security benefit. So let's assume that at the age of 66, you receive $2,000 a month. That's what Social Security says you would receive. Well, if it's 2,000 years, if you decided to turn it on at 62, now you're only getting $1,500 a month for the rest of your life. You forfeited that extra $500. There's no way to go back on it. Okay. Now, every year you wait, there's a percentage that they add to it, right? So once you get to 66, it's 100%. But if you don't, once again, this is back to your need, right? Of saying, what's my situation look like? Can I delay it, right? So I can take 100% of my benefit at 66. But what if I waited until the age of 70 to take it, which is the latest date in which you can turn on Social Security? Well, now you're going to receive 132% of your full benefit. So once again, if 2,000 is your full benefit, now you're receiving at the age of 70, $2,640 a month. Okay. So that's once again the ability to delay or take early your Social Security. So once again, back to, well, how do I determine this, right? How do I know when's best for me? Well, there's different factors. And at Edward Jones, we say we need to look at this through a lens. And lens, what that means, and here on the slide is L is life expectancy, right? If we retire at 65, you're going to find that many people are going to take they're going to take Social Security for 20 plus years, right? So that's life expectancies. Statistically speaking, a married couple or a couple, right? If they're at the age of 65, statistically speaking, they have a 60% chance for one of those two to live past the age of 90. That's what statistics show. So there's the ability that you're, at 65, you got 25, 30 years potentially that you're being paid Social Security. So that's important. Life expectancy is important. What's your family history, right? You have parents, grandparents, right, that lived into their 90s. We see plenty of clients that are in their 90s and later that they're still receiving Social Security. So life expectancy is important. Employment's the other important part. Employment is important because you can take Social Security at 62, but if you are still working at 62, you can only make so much money. If you make over in 2021, if you make over $19,000 a year, they will reduce your Social Security payment. Every $2 that you make above 19,000, they'll reduce your Social Security payment by $1. So it's important. If you say, hey, I'm still working, but I'm turning on Social Security, I want to get it right away. Not only are you locking in a lower value for the rest of your life, but you're also, if you're continuing to work and make above and beyond, they're going to take some of that money back from you, right? So, yep. So yeah, so that's a good question. So it's so as far as if you're not working all year long, is that what you mean? Or yeah. So you have to surpass the 19,000 for the annual, right? So if you worked 6 months and made 18,000 in the first 6 months and didn't work the rest of the year, then you're fine. Okay. Yep. Okay. So the third part there is need, and we talked about this briefly as well, right? The need. What is your specific situation, right? With our process, understanding where you are today in terms of your monthly expenses, right? What is that going to look like 5-10 years from now? Because inflation is a real thing, right? Is our expenses and the inflation on our expenses going to keep up with what our Social Security payment is? So what are our needs? What are our other sources of income? Do we have earned income still, right? Are we still working? Do we have pensions and annuities? Do we have retirement assets that can provide income for us if we were to retire and not turn on Social Security right away? Is there other sources of income there still? So that's a portion of it, needs. The other part then is the spousal benefit, right? And sorry, I'm kind of jumping through here. There are slides for all of this. So the next part then is the spousal benefit. So keep in mind, your decision doesn't only impact you alone if you have a spouse, right? It affects your spouse as well. Because spousal benefits are a real thing, which for a living spouse can receive half. We talked about that high income earner earlier on, right? They can receive, even if they didn't work, they can receive half of your Social Security payment, right? So they can receive half of that. If the earning spouse that had the high Social Security payment passes, the spouse can receive 100% potentially of this as a surviving spouse. So once again, even if you're not here, this affects your spouse as well. So that's why it's so important to make a good financial decision and not do things emotionally. So I kind of, and this is in your packet, but this is a scenario with Mark and Cindy. This is showing very similar to what we were talking about earlier. Mark receiving at full retirement age of 66 that $2,000 a month, right? Now Cindy worked too, but her earnings were lower. And so she only had $750 in Social Security, right? So she could, at 66, he could turn his on for $2,000. Cindy could turn hers on for $750. Or since they're full retirement age, Cindy could not turn hers on and just receive the spousal benefit of $1,000 as half of Mark's, right? Now, he does. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I should have known this.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. Important information. Absolutely. That's why we're here today. Absolutely.
Right now.
Well, yeah. So, good information to share with people, right? So the survivor benefit, right? So Mark turns on his Social Security at 66, is receiving the $2,000, but passes away shortly after. Cindy now just received his $2,000 a month. She would not continue to receive the spousal, or if hers was turned on, she would not continue to receive the $750. It would just be the $2,000.
So you keep mentioning if it's turned on, if Mark died before he turned Social Security on,
Yep.
What are Cindy's options?
It would be based upon the age in which he passed. If he had yet to turn it on, he was waiting for the age of 70. It would be wherever he's at, right? If he was 62 when he passed, she would receive the 62 and so on. Yep. Okay. So, and this just shows you the difference then, right? If they said, well, hey, we're one of those people, we just want to take it as early as possible. So he turns on his 1,500 Well, first of all, they have to be full retirement age for city to take advantage of the half. Right? But from there, once again, if she was to get half, it was only 750 now, not 1,000. If he were to pass, she's not getting 2,000, she's getting 1,500, right? Because that's when he turned it on at, right? So it's not the age in which he passes if he already turned on Social Security. Okay. So what about taxes, right? The taxes portion of it, it's going to be dependent on your filing status. We partner with our clients and their tax preparers to determine their specific situation. But a married couple filing jointly, if you make more than $44,000, 85% of your taxable or your Social Security is considered taxable. There's different brackets, much like income tax brackets, depending on how your filing status is. So it's something that, once again, we help clients through that and make sure that they're in the right position. So in conclusion, right, this is more of, okay, when we talk about Social Security, how are you going to make a good financial decision? And that's really bringing it back to the lens, right? The life expectancy, your employment, what your current needs are and future needs are. What's the spousal benefit needs, right? So Social Security, once again, I brought it up earlier. Social Security was only designed to be a piece of your retirement picture. It wasn't designed to really ever be, your full retirement, right? But it's important to develop a strategy for your income, right? To have a written budget in place, to know what are the pros and cons of taking Social Security at different ages, and how is it going to affect you in the long term, not just the day you turn it on. But additional information can always be found at the Social Security office, which they're not open until next year. So you can't go into the Social Security office right now, but you can always visit ssa.gov and get additional information there, statements, and that you can always call them as well. Yeah, absolutely. They are in the offices. You just can't go visit them. That's fine. So that is really the information I had for you today. I wanted to open it up to any questions. I know we've been asking some questions throughout, but are there any additional questions anybody has?
Are you still located next to Grand Traverse?
Actually, so Edward Jones, we have 5 offices here in town. My office is right next to the Huntington Bank on West Wooster. So not far from here, literally right around the corner. The Huntington Bank just on West Wooster around the corner from here. But yeah, technically we have 5 offices here in town. So we're everywhere. Sure, another question? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, so it's once again, these were just hypotheticals in terms of numbers. We were just using round numbers, but it's all dependent upon the years of service in, what your earned income, what your highest 35 years of earned income were. So depending on when you turn things on, that's something that if you turned it on back at 44, right, and 60, you're going to be 66, which is based on your birth year, considered full retirement age. That's where you want to reach out to Social Security to see if it makes sense to turn on the full, your true Social Security versus what you're currently getting. So, okay. So yeah, you'll just want to reach out to them.
And as we continue working, we're paying into Social Security.
Sure.
Is that raise our Social Security?
So it's not going to affect it. So you already turned on Social Security, you're saying, but you're continuing to pay into it because you're working still. Is that the question? Yeah. So it's not going to affect, because once you turn on your payment, you locked your payment in, right? The only thing you're going to get adjustments on are the cost of living or the inflation adjustment, right? And keep in mind, it's still the highest 35 years anyway, but up until you turn it on. So yeah, there wouldn't be an adjustment to your payment because you're still paying in. And really, the idea is that the money you're paying in today is paying for payments today, right? And you're not putting money, and this is if you're already taking Social Security a little different, right? But if you're putting money in today, it's not going set aside for you in the future. Today's funding is paying out current recipients of Social Security. And that ratio is dwindling quickly, and that's why we're seeing in 2034 that it won't be fully funded, and there's going to be adjustments that need to be made by 2034. Because I think by 2034, they're anticipating that every one person receiving Social Security, it's 2 people paying in to cover that one person receiving Social Security. Where I think as of today, it's like 5 to 1, right? So it's dwindling down. 5 people paying into Social Security is paying for one person now, or in the future, it's limited to 2 people paying for one. So that's where the shortfall tends to happen.
So given the choice of 2 different jobs to take, taking a job with PERS or SCRS, which does increase your payment.
So are you talking like your pension payment?
Yeah.
Yeah, so pension payments, be careful on that, right? Pension payments can change as well. So there are government pension programs that are not currently doing cost of living adjustments.
Right.
Yeah, so where Social Security potentially does, right? So it's just depends on the pension. So whether or not it's OPERS or STRS or CSRS, or I mean, there's a number of government pension programs to be in, but yeah, they don't, and they can change it at any time. They can say, hey, this year they're, for the next few years, we're not going to be doing cost of living adjustments, right? Yeah. Well, yeah, private pension programs, they're becoming fewer and fewer, and they're not. You never know. There's been private pension programs that have gone, insolvent. Yeah. So so it's government. You have the government backing that pension, so they're not afraid to print money. So, all right. So we'll stop this recording here today.
Thank you, Chad. On behalf of the Wood County Committee on Aging and our Lively U Virtual Learning Academy, we appreciate you sharing this knowledge with us today. We will be posting this on our YouTube channel. So until next time.